They say every marriage has secrets. But what happens when those secrets cost more than your car payment? For 7 years, I thought I knew my husband. I thought I understood our struggles, our fights, our distance. But nothing could have prepared me for what I found hidden in the back of his closet. Designer panties worth more than most people's monthly salary. He didn't just wear them. He flaunted them, gaslighted me, and turned me into the villain of our story. Friends stopped calling. Family whispered. And I became a ghost in my own life. But the day I discovered his most expensive collection yet, something inside me snapped. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. Instead, I did something so calculated, so perfectly executed, that it changed everything. This is the story of how I went from humiliated wife to the woman who got the last laugh. And trust me, you won't see the ending coming. If you want to know how this insane story unfolds, hit that like button right now and subscribe so you don't miss the jaw-dropping conclusion. Seriously, you're going to want to see how this ends. Comment below if you've ever felt gaslit in a relationship. Let's get into it. Chapter 1. The First Discovery. My name is Rachel, and I need you to understand something right from the start. I'm not the kind of person who goes looking for trouble. I'm a middle school teacher. I organize bake sales. I volunteer at the animal shelter on weekends. I recycle religiously. I'm the woman who reminds you that your parking meter is about to expire. I return shopping carts to the corral even when it's raining. So when I tell you what happened in my marriage, know that I never, ever imagined my life would become this. It started on a Tuesday in March. Tuesdays were laundry days. Always had been, ever since we got married 8 years ago. Marcus, my husband, traveled for work constantly. He was a regional sales executive for a luxury hotel chain, managing accounts across the entire Northeast. He'd be gone for days, sometimes weeks at a time, staying in 5-star hotels, dining at exclusive restaurants, living a life that seemed glamorous from the outside. When he was home, I tried to make everything perfect. Clean sheets with hospital corners, folded clothes organized by color, the kind of domestic harmony you see in fabric softener commercials. I took pride in taking care of our home, even though I worked full-time myself, even though I was exhausted most days, even though something in our marriage had felt off for years, though I couldn't quite name it. I was sorting through a basket of his dress shirts when I noticed something odd tucked into the side pocket of his carry-on luggage. At first, I thought it was a handkerchief. Silk, delicate, cream-colored with intricate lace trim. But as I pulled it out, my brain struggled to process what I was actually holding. It was a pair of panties. Not just any panties. These were La Perla. I knew the brand because I'd once window-shopped their store during a girls' trip to New York 3 years ago and nearly fainted at the price tags. My friends and I had laughed nervously, holding up pieces that cost more than our monthly car payments, joking about who would ever spend that kind of money on underwear. These particular ones? I looked them up later that night, my hands shaking as I typed into Google. $475 for a single pair of panties. My hands were trembling so badly I almost dropped them. A million thoughts crashed through my mind at once, each one more terrible than the last. Was Marcus having an affair? Had some other woman left these in his bag? Was this a message? A warning? A sick game? Had someone planted these to destroy our marriage? My chest felt tight. The room seemed to tilt. I sat on our bedroom floor for 20 minutes, just staring at those cream-colored panties, trying to make sense of a world that had suddenly stopped making sense. I confronted him that night. Marcus came home around 7, loosening his tie as he walked through the door, looking tired, but relatively relaxed. I'd rehearsed what I would say 100 times, but when the moment came, my carefully planned speech evaporated. "Marcus," I said, my voice surprisingly steady despite the hurricane in my chest, "I need to ask you something." He looked up from his laptop, eyebrows raised in that casual way he had, like nothing in the world could touch him. "Sure, babe. What's up?" I placed the panties on the coffee table between us with deliberate care, like they were evidence in a courtroom, which, in a way, they were. "I found these in your luggage." For exactly 3 seconds, his face went completely blank. Not shocked, not guilty, just empty, like his brain was processing information and deciding how to respond. Then he laughed, actually laughed. a big booming sound that filled our living room and made me feel small. "Oh my God, Rachel," he said, shaking his head with what looked like genuine amusement. "You thought, wow. Okay, those are from a client meeting. One of the hotel managers in Boston gave them to me as a gag gift for you. It's this inside joke about luxury amenities and exceeding guest expectations. I completely forgot they were in there." The explanation was smooth, too smooth, practiced, almost. But I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe him. Because the alternative, that my husband was either cheating on me or doing something I couldn't even imagine, was too painful to consider. "A gag gift?" I repeated slowly. "Someone gave you expensive panties as a joke?" "Yes. Rachel, come on. You know how weird corporate culture can be. Last month, someone gave Dave a solid gold toilet paper holder. It's just how people show off in the luxury industry." He walked over and hugged me, wrapping his arms around my shoulders. "I love you. Only you. Always. You really think I'd be stupid enough to bring home evidence of cheating? Give me some credit." The logic made sense. Sort of. And the hug felt real. So I let myself believe it. I should have trusted my gut. But instead, I trusted him. That was my first mistake. Chapter 2. The pattern emerges. 3 months later, I found another pair. This time, they were tucked into his gym bag, hidden beneath his workout towel and protein shaker. Bordel. Black lace with intricate harness details and gold hardware that caught the light. They looked like something from a museum, like art you weren't supposed to touch. I looked them up immediately, my heart already sinking because I knew what I'd find. $895. When I confronted Marcus this time, he didn't laugh. He sighed, long and heavy, like I was a child who'd asked the same question too many times. "Rachel, we've been through this. I told you. Clients give me weird gifts all the time. It's the luxury hotel business. People have strange senses of humor. It's how they build rapport, how they show appreciation. You wouldn't understand because you don't work in this industry. But why panties? Why always panties? Why not ties or cufflinks or normal gifts? I don't know. Maybe because they think it's funny? Maybe because the hotel industry has this whole thing about intimate luxury." His voice had an edge now, sharp and irritated. "Why are you going through my stuff anyway? Do you not trust me? Is that what this marriage has become?" And just like that, he'd turned it around on me. Suddenly, I was the suspicious wife. I was the one with trust issues. I was the one damaging our relationship with my paranoia. "I wasn't going through your things," I said quietly. "I was just putting away laundry." "Right. Sure. You just happened to find them." He grabbed his keys. "I'm going to the gym. Maybe when I get back, we can have a conversation where you don't accuse me of things." He left, and I stood there feeling crazy, feeling guilty, feeling like somehow this was my fault. Over the next 2 years, I found 7 more pairs, each one more expensive than the last. Each discovery made my hands shake a little harder. Agent Provocateur in deep burgundy silk, Fleur du Mal with hand-embroidered flowers, Corrine Gilson in champagne-colored lace so delicate it looked like spiderwebs, brands I couldn't even pronounce, brands that required appointments just to enter their boutiques. Each time, Marcus had an explanation ready. Each time, he made me feel crazy for asking. Each time, the explanations got thinner, more dismissive, more obviously fabricated. But each time, he'd add just enough detail to create doubt. "That pair? Conference gift bag in Miami. Those? Client's wife runs a boutique. She's trying to get hotel contracts. This one? You remember that big account I closed? The team gave me gag gifts." And each time, I swallowed my suspicions a little harder. Each time, I felt a little more insane. My friend Jennifer noticed something was wrong. We were having coffee one Saturday morning, and she reached across the table to touch my hand. "Rachel, are you okay? You seem, I don't know, distant." I almost told her. The words were right there, pressing against my teeth. "But how do you explain that you keep finding women's luxury underwear in your husband's possession? How do you say that out loud without sounding paranoid or delusional?" "Just tired," I said. "Work's been crazy." She didn't believe me. I could see it in her eyes. But she let it go. I wish she hadn't. But then came the night that shattered everything. Chapter 3. The truth revealed. I couldn't sleep. It was 2 a.m. on a Thursday, and Marcus was snoring softly beside me, completely at peace. But my mind wouldn't shut off. I kept thinking about the latest pair I'd found just 3 days earlier, a custom creation with hand-sewn crystals and silk so fine it looked liquid. I'd looked up the brand. $2,000. $2,000 for a single pair of underwear. His client gift story was wearing thinner than that expensive silk, but I had no proof of anything else. No evidence of an affair. No mysterious phone calls or lipstick stains or hotel receipts that didn't match his travel schedule. Just an endless parade of luxury panties that made no sense. I got up to get water, moving quietly through our dark house. On my way back from the kitchen, I noticed light coming from under the master bathroom door, a thin golden line against the hardwood floor. Had I left it on? Marcus sometimes forgot to turn off lights, but that wasn't like him. I gently pushed the door open, expecting to find an empty room. Instead, I found my husband, Marcus, the man I'd married 8 years ago, the man who'd promised to love and cherish me, the man who'd held my hand through my father's funeral and laughed at my terrible jokes and said he wanted to grow old with me. He was standing in front of the full-length mirror, wearing nothing but a pair of designer panties, pink ones this time, delicate blush, pink with white lace trim and tiny pearl details along the waistband. They caught the light as he moved, shimmering, but it wasn't just that he was wearing them. He was posing, turning from side to side slowly, deliberately, studying his reflection from every angle, running his hands over the fabric with an expression I'd never seen on his face before, running his fingers along the lace edges, adjusting the fit, admiring himself. And he looked happy, more than happy. He looked euphoric, transported, like he was somewhere else entirely, somewhere I'd never been invited. I must have made a sound, a gasp or a sharp intake of breath, because he spun around, eyes wide with shock. For a moment, we just stared at each other. Two people who shared a bed, a life, a last name, two complete strangers. Rachel. His voice cracked. What are you doing? My own voice sounded far away, like it was coming from someone else's body. The question hung in the air like smoke, heavy, suffocating. For a moment, neither of us moved. We could have stayed frozen there forever, trapped in that awful moment of exposure. Then Marcus's face transformed. The shock melted away like ice in summer, replaced by something cold and hard, something defiant, something that scared me more than anything else that had happened. What does it look like I'm doing? He said flatly. I don't understand. He laughed, but there was no humor in it, just bitterness and something else I couldn't identify. No, you wouldn't. You never do. You've never understood anything about me. Marcus, please, just talk to me. Explain this. Help me understand what's happening. He turned back to the mirror, looking at himself again, his reflection meeting mine in the glass. They're comfortable, Rachel. They're beautiful. And they make me feel good. They make me feel like myself. Is that so hard to understand? My brain was trying to process too many things at once. You've been lying to me for years. I didn't lie, he interrupted sharply. I just didn't tell you. There's a difference. A significant difference. You said clients gave them to you. You said they were gifts. I said what I needed to say to avoid this conversation. This exact conversation where you look at me like I'm some kind of freak. I'm not, but I couldn't finish. Because maybe I was. Maybe my face was betraying exactly what I felt. Confusion, betrayal, shock. My legs felt weak. I sat down on the edge of the bathtub, my hands gripping the cold porcelain. How long? How long what? How long have you been doing this? Wearing them? He smiled at his reflection, running his hands down his sides. The gesture was almost sensual. Since before we met, since I was a teenager, actually, I've always known what I like, what makes me feel right. The words hit me like physical blows. Before we met, our entire relationship, our entire marriage, built on a lie, on a version of Marcus that apparently didn't exist. And you never thought to tell me? Your wife? The person you're supposed to share everything with? Share everything? He turned to face me fully now, and his expression was cruel. Rachel, you can barely handle me wearing nice panties. How exactly was I supposed to share this with you? By trusting me, by being honest, by watching you freak out and judge me like you're doing right now? No thanks. I've spent my whole life hiding who I am from people who wouldn't understand. Why would my wife be any different? That hurt worse than anything. The casual dismissal. The assumption that I was just like everyone else who'd apparently rejected him. The fact that he'd never even given me a chance to understand. "I'm your wife," I whispered. "Yes," he said, turning back to the mirror. "You are. And this is who your husband really is. Deal with it or don't. But I'm done hiding." Chapter 4. The humiliation begins. I wish I could tell you that conversation led to understanding, that we went to couples therapy, that we worked through it together with compassion and communication, that we found a way to honor his truth while preserving our marriage, but that's not what happened. Not even close. What happened was that Marcus stopped hiding it. Completely, aggressively, deliberately. Suddenly, packages arrived at our house constantly. Every single day. Sometimes multiple times a day. Luxury lingerie brands I'd never heard of. La Perla, Agent Provocateur, Bordel, Fleur du Mal, Corinne Gilson, Coco de Mer. Each box contained panties that cost more than our monthly grocery budget, more than my car payment, more than some people's rent. He'd open them at the dinner table while I was trying to eat, holding them up to the light like he was examining fine art, discussing the fabric quality like he was reviewing wine. "Look at this silk blend, Rachel. 60% silk, 40% modal. The way it catches the light is just exquisite. And this hand-stitched lace? You can't even get this quality anymore. It's a dying art." I didn't know how to respond. I'd try to eat my pasta while my husband waxed poetic about underwear that cost more than I spent on clothes in a year. "Notice the seam construction," he'd continue, ignoring my silence. "French seaming, completely invisible from the outside. That's craftsmanship." But it got so much worse. Marcus started teasing me. That's the only word for it. He'd make comments about how I didn't understand luxury, or how I was too basic to appreciate fine things. He'd compare his panty collection to my simple cotton underwear from Target and laugh. Actually laugh at me. "Maybe if you invested in yourself you'd understand," he'd say, holding up a pair that cost $600. "But I guess some people are content with mediocrity." "Marcus, those cost more than what? More than your sad cotton briefs? Everything costs more than those. You dress like you've given up on life." When I tried to talk about our finances, about how he'd spent over $30,000 in a year on underwear while I drove a car with 200,000 miles on it, while I wore the same 5 work outfits in rotation, while I clipped coupons and bought generic brands to save money, he'd shut me down immediately. "I earn the money. I'll spend it how I want. Maybe if you had a better job, you could afford nice things, too. I was a teacher. I made $42,000 a year. I taught 30 kids who needed me. But suddenly that wasn't enough. I wasn't enough. Friends started noticing something was off. Marcus began wearing his panties under his clothes everywhere. Every day. To work. To the gym. To dinner parties. And somehow, people found out. Maybe he told someone. Maybe someone saw a waistband. Maybe he wanted them to know. I don't know. But suddenly, our social circle was whispering. At a dinner party at our friend's house, Marcus's colleague Jake made a joke. "Hey Marcus, those Italian silk boxers treating you well?" He winked, and the whole table went silent for a second before erupting in uncomfortable laughter. Marcus didn't even flinch. He smiled. Actually smiled. "Actually, they're French lace. Bordel. And yes, they're treating me very well. Better than any boring cotton could ever manage." I wanted to disappear. I wanted the floor to open up and swallow me whole. Every eye at that table turned to me, and I could see the pity, the judgment, the question, "Why are you still with him?" Jake's wife Sarah pulled me aside later. "Rachel, honey, are you okay? That was intense." "I'm fine," I lied. "Because if you need to talk," I said I'm fine, but I wasn't fine. I was drowning. My sister Sarah, same name as Jake's wife, which always caused confusion, stopped inviting me to family events. When I finally called her, crying, asking why, she was brutally honest in that way only siblings can be. "Rachel, I love you. You know I do. But Marcus makes everyone uncomfortable. The way he talks about his hobby, the way he treats you, the constant comments about luxury and quality while you're sitting there in clothes we both know are 5 years old. And honestly, The fact that you're staying with him while he does this, it reflects on you too. He's my husband, I said, my voice breaking. What am I supposed to do? Just give up on 8 years of marriage? I don't know. But I can't keep explaining your situation to my kids when they ask why Uncle Marcus is acting weird. Tyler asked me yesterday if Uncle Marcus wears girl underwear. He's 7 years old, Rachel. How am I supposed to answer that? Just tell him. Tell him what? That sometimes adults make choices that are hard to explain? He's 7, and Marcus isn't making this easy on anyone, especially you. She paused, and I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line. I love you, she said finally. But I can't watch you do this to yourself anymore. Call me when you're ready to make a change. She hung up. One by one, people drifted away. Not because Marcus wore panties. Honestly, if he'd been private and respectful about it, if he'd just lived his truth without weaponizing it, most people wouldn't have cared. People are more accepting than we give them credit for. But because he'd turned it into a weapon, he'd made it performative. He used it to humiliate me, to assert dominance, to prove some twisted point about his freedom and my inadequacy. Every conversation became about his collection. Every social gathering became an opportunity to make me feel small. At a barbecue, he loudly announced to everyone that he'd just spent $4,000 on a vintage piece from the 1950s. When someone asked if that was a lot to spend on underwear, he laughed and said, "It is for some people. Not for me, though. I have standards." I was standing right there. I was drowning in shame I didn't even deserve. Shame for something I hadn't done. Shame for staying. Shame for not staying. Shame for existing in a marriage that had become a public spectacle. Chapter 5. The Breaking Point. It was a random Thursday in September when I found them. I'd gone into our bedroom closet looking for my winter coat because the weather was finally starting to turn. Marcus had taken over most of the closet space over the years. His suits, his shoes, his endless collection of luxury items. But I still had one small section in the back corner. Just enough space for my seasonal clothes and a few boxes of keepsakes. Except when I pushed aside his custom-made Italian suits, I found something new. A locked box. A beautiful mahogany box with gold hardware and an intricate combination lock. The kind of box you'd see in a movie, holding family jewels or secret documents. It was roughly the size of a small suitcase, and it looked expensive. Really expensive. My heart started pounding. Every instinct told me to leave it alone, to back away, to preserve whatever fragile piece still existed in our marriage. But after 3 years of gaslighting, 3 years of humiliation, 3 years of being made to feel insane for trusting my own perceptions, I couldn't. I needed to know. I tried our anniversary first. 08/15/2015. Nothing. The lock didn't budge. His birthday. 06/22/1987. Nothing. My birthday. 11/03/1989. Nothing. Our first date. The day we moved in together. His mother's birthday. Nothing. 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 I sat there for 15 minutes, trying combination after combination, feeling increasingly desperate and increasingly guilty. What was I doing? This was his private property. I was violating his privacy. But then again, he'd violated our entire marriage with his lies, so maybe I was entitled to some answers. Then, on impulse, I tried the numbers from our old apartment address, the place where we'd lived when we first started dating, the tiny one-bedroom in Brooklyn where we'd said "I love you" for the first time, where we'd planned our future, where everything had still felt possible. 3247. Click. The box opened. Inside were panties like I'd never seen before. Not just expensive, not just luxury. These were art, museum pieces, custom creations that belonged behind glass, handmade lace with real gold threading woven through the fabric, silk so fine it looked like liquid moonlight, embroidery so intricate it must have taken hundreds of hours, designs that made the expensive pieces I'd found before look like cheap knockoffs. Some had actual precious stones sewn into them, small diamonds, sapphires, what looked like real pearls. Each pair was wrapped in individual silk pouches with documentation cards detailing the designer, the materials, the creation date, like certificates of authenticity for fine art, and beneath them, receipts. I pulled them out with trembling hands, my vision starting to blur with tears I refused to let fall. $5,000 for a single custom pair from a boutique in Paris. The receipt was in French, but I could read the numbers clearly enough. $6,000 for another from a designer in Milan, hand-embroidered, one of a kind. $7,000 for a set from London, custom-fitted, gold threading. $8,000, $10,000, $12,000. The receipts went back 6 months. He'd spent over $100,000 on custom luxury panties in half a year, while I'd been eating peanut butter sandwiches for lunch to save money, while I'd been walking to work instead of using gas, while I'd been buying my clothes from thrift stores. $100,000. I sat on the closet floor, surrounded by the most expensive underwear in the world, and something inside me finally broke. But it didn't break into tears. It didn't break into rage. It broke into something cold, something clear, something calculating. It broke into absolute crystalline clarity. I took pictures, every single pair, every angle, every receipt, every documentation card. I used my phone's camera to document everything with the methodical precision of a detective at a crime scene. Then I closed the box, reset the combination, and put everything back exactly as I'd found it. Marcus would never know I'd discovered his secret stash. Not yet, anyway, because I had plans, and those plans required patience. Chapter 6. The Plan. I didn't confront Marcus. Not this time. Not like before. Instead, I became a different person. A person I didn't know I could be. Strategic, patient, calculating. First, I called a divorce attorney. Not just any attorney. The best one I could find. Sharon Mitchell specialized in high-asset divorces and forensic accounting. She had a reputation for being ruthless and brilliant in equal measure. Her consultation fee was $500 for 1 hour. I used money from my secret savings account, the one Marcus didn't know about, the one where I'd been squirreling away $20 here and there for years, thinking maybe someday I'd use it for a vacation or a new car. I'd saved $4,200 over 6 years. Now I was going to use it to save my life. Sharon listened to my entire story without interrupting. When I finished, she sat back in her leather chair and smiled. Actually smiled. "Mrs. Richardson," she said, "what your husband has done is called financial infidelity. If you can prove he's spent significant marital assets without your knowledge or consent for purely personal indulgences, especially if you've been financially struggling while he's been spending lavishly, we can make a very strong case." How strong? Strong enough that you could potentially recoup a significant portion of those expenses in the settlement. We're talking about over $100,000 in 6 months, correct? Yes. And you have documentation? Receipts? Photographs? Everything. Her smile widened. Then we have leverage. Significant leverage. Plus, depending on how he's documented this spending, there might be tax implications he hasn't considered. If he's been writing any of this off as business expenses. He has, I interrupted. I've seen expense reports in his home office. Sharon's eyes actually lit up. Then we might have something even better. Tax fraud is a federal issue. That gives us multiple angles of attack. Over the next hour, she outlined a strategy. We'd need to gather more evidence. Bank statements, credit card bills, his expense reports from work. Anything that showed the pattern of spending and deception. "Can you get access to these documents?" she asked. "I think so. We have a home office. He keeps everything in filing cabinets. Then that's your homework. Copy everything. Don't move anything. Don't let him know you've been looking. We need to document everything before we make our move." I spent the next 3 weeks systematically photographing every financial document in our house. Every time Marcus traveled for work, I'd spend hours in his office, carefully removing papers from folders, photographing them, and putting them back exactly as I'd found them. What I discovered made me physically ill. Marcus had been lying about money for years. Not just spending it on panties, but hiding income, manipulating our joint accounts, moving money into secret savings that I didn't have access to. He had over $200,000 in accounts I didn't know existed, while I'd been struggling to pay for groceries, while I'd been wearing shoes with holes in them, while I'd been denying myself everything because I thought we were barely making it financially. He'd been hoarding money and spending it on luxury underwear. But I didn't confront him. I documented it all and sent it to Sharon. Next, I called our insurance company. I kept my voice casual, friendly. just a concerned wife checking on our coverage. Hi, this is Rachel Richardson. I just wanted to confirm the details of our homeowner's policy. Of course, Mrs. Richardson. What specifically would you like to know? Well, I remember my husband mentioning something about coverage for high-value personal items. Can you remind me what that covers? Let me pull up your file. I heard typing. Oh yes, your husband added a rider last year. $50,000 coverage for collectible luxury items. My hand tightened on the phone. Collectible luxury items? Yes, he listed them as, let me check the exact wording, vintage designer lingerie. Quite an unusual collection. You'll need to provide documentation for any claims, of course. Receipts, photographs, appraisals. Of course, I said sweetly. Thank you so much for your help. I hung up and smiled. Marcus had insured his panty collection, which meant he'd documented its value, which meant he'd admitted, in writing to an insurance company, exactly how much he'd spent. But my most important move was yet to come. I created a new email address, something completely untraceable. Then I wrote a careful, detailed message to Marcus's company ethics hotline. I attached photos of expense reports I'd found in his office. Expense reports where he'd classified some of his panty purchases as client entertainment, business gifts, and relationship-building expenses, where he'd charged luxury boutique visits to his corporate card and labeled them as vendor meetings. I attached receipts, dates, credit card statements showing the purchases matched the expense report dates, everything they'd need to start an internal audit. I explained that I was a concerned party who'd become aware of potential expense fraud. I kept my tone professional and detached. Then I hit send and waited. Chapter 7. The Unraveling. It took exactly 11 days. Marcus came home at 3 in the afternoon on a Wednesday. He was supposed to be at work, but there he was, standing in our living room, pale and shaking, his tie loosened and his shirt wrinkled. He looked like he'd aged 10 years. I need to tell you something, he said. I looked up from my laptop where I'd been pretending to grade papers. What's wrong? The company is investigating my expense reports. Someone sent in an anonymous complaint to the ethics hotline. I made my face show concern. Shock. Oh my God. About what? They're saying I misclassified personal expenses as business costs. They've frozen my corporate card. They're auditing 3 years of reports. They've put me on administrative leave pending the investigation. Oh no, I said, my voice carefully calibrated. Marcus, that's terrible. What did you misclassify? The silence stretched between us like a chasm. Marcus? I prompted gently. His hands were shaking. Some of the items I purchased, I may have listed them incorrectly on a few reports. Items like your panties? His face went red, then white, then red again. It was just a few times, just to offset the cost a little bit. Everyone does it. It's not a big deal. Just creative accounting. They're overreacting. I stood up slowly. How many times is a few times? I don't know. Maybe 20 or 30 charges over 2 years. And how much money are we talking about? He wouldn't meet my eyes. Maybe 40,000, give or take. I let that number sink in. $40,000, stolen from his company. While I'd been eating peanut butter sandwiches for lunch to save $3 a day, while I'd been wearing the same 5 outfits in rotation, while I'd been so humiliated I'd lost my friends and family. $40,000, I repeated slowly. It's not stealing. Companies have entertainment budgets for exactly this kind of thing. I was just interpreting the rules differently. You were committing expense fraud. Don't say that. Don't use that word. It makes it sound criminal. Because it is criminal, Marcus. It's theft. It's fraud. I know, he shouted. I know, okay? I know what it is. And I know I'm screwed. If they fire me, we're screwed. My job, my reputation, my entire career. You should have thought about that before you stole from your company to buy underwear. He stared at me like I'd slapped him. You don't understand. You never understand. I needed them. They're not just underwear to me. They're worth more than your marriage, your wife, your integrity. That's not fair. Fair? I actually laughed. You want to talk about fair? While you were spending $100,000 on panties, I was walking to work to save gas money. While you were buying custom pieces from Paris, I was shopping at thrift stores. While you were treating yourself to luxury, I was wondering why we could never afford to fix the leak in the bathroom or replace the broken dishwasher. You could have spent money too. I never stopped you. You told me we couldn't afford it. You said we needed to be careful with money. You made me feel guilty for every single purchase while you were hoarding wealth and spending it on yourself. We stood there, staring at each other across our living room, and I realized I didn't recognize the man in front of me. Maybe I never had. You need to talk to a lawyer, I said finally, my voice cold. A criminal defense lawyer. Because your company is going to prosecute. Our lawyer… No, I interrupted. Your lawyer, not our lawyer. Because I've already retained my own. The color drained from his face completely. What? I walked to our bedroom and came back with a folder I'd prepared weeks ago. These are divorce papers. I'm filing on grounds of financial infidelity, emotional abuse, and irreconcilable differences. You have 7 days to find somewhere else to live. Rachel, you can't be serious. Please. We can work through this. Work through what? Your lies? Your theft? The way you've humiliated me for 3 years? The way you've isolated me from everyone I love? I never meant to hurt you. But you did. Over and over and over. And you enjoyed it. You used your secret as a weapon against me. Rachel, please. And Marcus. I looked him straight in the eye. That anonymous tip to your company about the expense fraud? That was me. Chapter 8. The Empire Falls. The divorce took 8 months. 8 long, brutal months of depositions and document discovery and court appearances. In that time, Marcus lost everything. The company investigation found extensive expense fraud going back 4 years, not 2. Over $75,000 in misclassified personal expenses. They terminated him without severance and filed a civil suit to recover the stolen funds plus penalties. But here's where the story gets truly interesting. During discovery, my attorney subpoenaed Marcus's financial records. All of them. Every bank account, every credit card, every electronic transaction for the past 5 years. And we found something that changed everything. Marcus had been selling his panties online. Not all of them. Just the ones he'd worn. He'd created multiple anonymous accounts on specialty fetish websites and was selling used luxury panties to collectors for premium prices. Some pieces sold for more than he'd originally paid for them. Significantly more. A pair he'd bought for $2,000 sold for $4,000 after he'd worn it for a month. A custom piece that cost $7,000 sold for $12,000 to a collector in Japan. He'd been running an entire business. A profitable business. And he'd never declared any of it as income. Over 3 years, he'd made over $200,000 selling used designer panties. $200,000 in unreported income. The IRS got involved. Suddenly, Marcus wasn't just facing a divorce and a civil suit from his former employer. He was facing federal tax evasion charges. My divorce attorney was absolutely brilliant. Sharon argued that since Marcus had used marital funds to purchase inventory for his secret business, I was entitled to half of all profits, plus damages for the emotional distress caused by his deception, plus reimbursement for my share of the unreported tax liability. We had documentation of everything: his purchases, his online seller accounts, his PayPal transactions, bank deposits from overseas buyers, everything. The judge was a woman in her 60s named Margaret Chen. She listened to our case for 3 days, reviewing hundreds of pages of evidence. On the final day, she removed her glasses and looked directly at Marcus. Mr. Richardson, she said, I've been on the bench for 23 years. I've seen a lot of things, but I have rarely seen such a calculated pattern of deception directed at a spouse. You didn't just hide a hobby. You built a secret business empire on your wife's back while making her feel guilty for buying groceries. Marcus tried to speak, but Judge Chen held up her hand. You will pay Mrs. Richardson 50% of all documented profits from your online business. You will reimburse her for all personal expenses she incurred while you were hoarding marital assets. You will pay her legal fees, and you will maintain spousal support for a period of 5 years while you sort out your criminal issues. She signed the order with a flourish. But the absolute best part? The part that still makes me smile when I think about it? Remember that insurance policy Marcus had taken out on his collectible vintage designer lingerie collection? The one with $50,000 of coverage? 3 weeks before the divorce was finalized, I filed a claim. I explained to the insurance company that there had been a terrible accident, that I'd been doing laundry, just trying to be a good wife, and had accidentally mixed Marcus's entire collection with harsh bleach and scorching hot water. Every single piece, destroyed beyond repair. I provided photos, the beautiful handmade lace shredded into tatters, the delicate silk bleached white and falling apart, the gold threading tarnished and broken, the precious stones loose and falling off. Everything ruined. It was all fake, of course. I'd bought cheap lace and silk from a craft store and destroyed those instead. Marcus's actual collection was safely stored in my attorney's office, waiting to be liquidated as part of the divorce settlement. But the insurance company didn't know that. They investigated. They confirmed the original value through the receipts and documentation Marcus had provided when he took out the policy. They verified that yes, these items had existed, and yes, they'd been worth what he claimed. And they cut me a check for $50,000. When Marcus found out, he called me screaming. Actually screaming so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. "You destroyed my collection. Those were irreplaceable. Do you have any idea what you've done? Some of those pieces were one of a kind. They can never be replicated. You've destroyed art. You're a monster." I let him rant. When he finally stopped to breathe, I spoke calmly. "No, Marcus. You destroyed our marriage. You destroyed my trust. You destroyed 8 years of my life with your lies. The panties?" I paused. "The panties were just a bonus." I hung up. He tried calling back 17 times. I blocked his number. Epilogue. The woman I became. The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday in April, almost exactly 4 years after I'd found that first pair of La Perla panties in his luggage. The final settlement was more than I'd dreamed possible. I got the house. I got half of his hidden online business profits, over $100,000. I got the $50,000 insurance payout. I got a significant portion of our other marital assets, plus spousal support payments of $3,000 per month for 5 years while Marcus dealt with his IRS problems and tried to rebuild his career. But more than the money, more than the house, more than any material thing, I got my life back. I got my friends back. Once they understood the full scope of what had been happening, once they learned about the financial abuse and the gaslighting and the systematic humiliation, they rallied around me like an army. Jennifer organized a divorce party where 20 women showed up to celebrate my freedom. We drank wine and ate cake and laughed until we cried. I got my family back. Sarah apologized with tears streaming down her face, and we spent an entire weekend just talking, reconnecting, rebuilding what Marcus had tried to destroy. Her son Tyler, now 9, gave me a card he'd made himself that said, "I'm glad you're happy again, Aunt Rachel." I got my dignity back. I walk through town now with my head held high, no longer carrying shame that was never mine to bear. And I got something I never expected: confidence. The kind of bone-deep confidence that comes from standing up for yourself when everyone tells you you're crazy, from trusting your instincts when someone you love tries to convince you they're wrong, from refusing to accept humiliation as the price of love. I learned that I'm stronger than I ever imagined, that I'm capable of strategic thinking and careful planning, that I can fight for myself and win. 6 months after the divorce, I got a promotion at work, department head, a $20,000 raise. I bought myself a new car, not a luxury car, just a reliable Honda that doesn't leak oil or make weird noises. But it's mine, paid for with my money, earned through my hard work. I redecorated the house, painted the walls colors Marcus would have hated, bought furniture I actually liked instead of the investment pieces he'd insisted on, made it feel like home for the first time in years. And yes, I started dating again. His name is David. He's a librarian. He wears regular cotton boxer briefs from a 3-pack at Target, and somehow that's the sexiest thing in the world. He thinks my cotton underwear is beautiful because I'm wearing it. He makes me laugh. He listens when I talk. He treats me like an equal partner instead of an adversary. On our 3rd date, I told him the whole story. I thought he might run. Instead, he reached across the table and took my hand. "That must have been incredibly lonely," he said. "I'm sorry you went through that. Not, 'that's crazy.' Not, 'why did you stay so long?' Just compassion. Just kindness. We've been together for 4 months now. It's early and I'm taking things slow, but it feels right in a way nothing has felt right in years. Marcus still lives in town. I see him sometimes at the grocery store or the gas station. He looks smaller now, diminished. Not because he lost everything, but because the mask is finally off. Everyone can see who he really is. A man who lied to his wife, stole from his company, evaded taxes, and turned his personal journey into a weapon against someone who loved him. Last week, I received a package in the mail. No return address. Inside was a single pair of La Perla panties, the same cream-colored style I'd first found in his luggage all those years ago, and a note in Marcus's handwriting. "I'm sorry. I never meant to hurt you. I just wanted to be myself. I hope someday you can forgive me." I looked at those panties for a long time, held them in my hands, thought about everything they represented, all the lies, all the pain, all the wasted years. Then I did something that felt absolutely perfect. I donated them to a women's shelter thrift store. I included a note. "These are worth about $500. Please price them accordingly and use the money to help women rebuilding their lives. They deserve to know their worth." Because that's what this whole experience taught me. Your worth isn't determined by how someone treats you. It's not diminished by their lies or their cruelty or their ability to make you doubt yourself. Your worth is inherent, unchangeable, absolute. You deserve honesty. You deserve respect. You deserve a partner who honors you instead of humiliating you. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is stop accepting less than you deserve. I'm not the same woman I was 4 years ago. That woman would have stayed. That woman would have kept making excuses. That woman would have sacrificed herself trying to save a marriage that was already dead. This woman knows her value. This woman fights for herself. This woman understands that walking away from what's destroying you is strength, not weakness. I teach middle school kids, remember? And now, when I see students struggling with bullies or bad friendships or situations that make them feel small, I tell them my story. Not all the details, but the important parts. Sometimes people we love hurt us, I tell them. And when they do, you have a choice. You can stay and let them keep hurting you. Or you can choose yourself. You can walk away with your head held high and build something better. Last week, a girl named Emma came to me after class. She was crying. "My best friend makes fun of me in front of other people," she said. "She says it's just jokes, but it hurts. What should I do?" I looked at her for a long moment, remembering who I used to be. Then I said, "You teach people how to treat you by what you accept. If her jokes hurt you, that's not friendship. That's someone using you to feel better about themselves. You deserve better." Emma hugged me. "Thank you, Mrs. Richardson." 3 days later, she told me she'd ended the friendship, and she looked lighter, freer, like she'd put down a weight she didn't know she'd been carrying. That's what I want people to understand. That's why I'm sharing this story. The panties cost $5,000. The divorce cost almost that much in legal fees. The years of humiliation cost me relationships and self-esteem, and countless hours of therapy. But finding myself, reclaiming my life, learning my worth, that was priceless. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt gaslit or humiliated in a relationship, if you've ever wondered whether you should trust your instincts, please hit that like button and subscribe. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment telling me your story or just letting me know you're here. And remember, you are never crazy for trusting what you know in your bones to be true. Your instincts are valid. Your feelings matter. And you deserve so much better than someone who makes you question your reality. The panties cost $5,000, but my freedom? That's worth everything. Thank you for listening to my story. And please, if you're in a situation like I was, talk to someone. Reach out. Get help. You don't have to do this alone. Remember, you are valuable, you are worthy, and you are so much stronger than you think.